everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to bake up some sourdoughs, make some English muffins, and make a sausage bacon omelet. So let's start by getting our sourdoughs prepped up and into our Dutch oven. These are the ones that we shaped up last night. So I'm gonna flip them out onto our parchment paper here. And this is just our classic, traditional loaf. And so I'm just going to do my basic kind of crisscross score here. And then we'll do the little pretty kind of Christmas tree down each side. And then we'll put these in our Dutch oven, which is nice and hot. I've had them preheating, in my oven at 500 for the last like 45 minutes. So we're going to put this one in my nice hot Dutch oven number 1. Slide it in there. We're going to put our lid on. That's going to trap in the moisture and essentially prevent, skips the step of then needing to add steam or water or whatnot to steam bake it. And then we've got our second loaf here. This is going to be, that was our bowl. This is our loaf. Slide this guy out. Got a little bit of stickage. That's okay. We'll tuck them back in there. We've got a little bubble here. And we'll just pop them, bring them back in. And I'm just going to do my big score, my expansion score. And then scrape off a little bit of this extra flour. And then we're just going to do our basic kind of wheat leaf design all the way down. My classic. We can't go wrong with that. And then we're going to pop this in our nice and hot and toasty Dutch oven. And then we're going to transfer these to our oven. We're going to bake it at 500 for 20 minutes and then at 450 for 20 minutes with the lid off. So we'll slide that in there nice and snug. And let's go transfer these guys to our oven. So we'll do a little back and forth. These guys get so heavy. Whew. One of these times I have this really huge Dutch oven. It's the largest one Le Creuset makes. And I'm like really tempted to make a really giant sourdough bowl sometime in it. But I feel like it would be so heavy. Oh, that would be super cool. Okay, we got these in at 500. We're going to set this for 20 minutes. And while we're doing that, let's get our next step we're going to do is we're going to start toasting up some of our English muffins that I have proofing in my oven right now. So let me take them out. This is the dough we made up last night on our late night stream. I shaped them out this morning about an hour or a bit ago. And I've got them on some nice, on my parchment paper with a little bit of cornmeal. And we're going to toast them up on here. These ones are all pretty, and these are my Frankenstein ones that we kind of shaped together. And that was my little itty bitty wee one. I always say the first sets are always beautiful, but then when you have to push your little scraps together, not so pretty. But they all taste the same. Okay, and we're going to transfer them onto our nice and toasty warm skillet that I've had preheating for a while. That way it doesn't take so long. And we can get a good amount on here. And the kind of the trick is you have them toasting up on like a medium low. So this is on about a 4. And they're going to cook through, and then you'll flip them over and cook on the other side. And it takes like a hot minute to get them going. But it is so delicious. Let's see. I think I can add a few more on here. I'll say, as long as they're not touching each other, you can get as many on here as you want. Now, I don't go too far out to the outside because I know that my burner underneath is really only this circle right here. So we've got our pretty little English muffin flour thing. And we should be able to get the next round on there. So again, having these on 4, and a while I'll toast. I want that kind of a darkish brown kind of coloring on it. You want a dry skillet. You don't want it to be wet or have any oil on it, because you need it to kind of crisp it up, but you don't, any oil or fat will burn on it. Okay, let's start by getting our omelet going. We've got some bacon and some pork sausage here. And I don't know if I'm going to cook up all of my bacon. I think we're just going to use half of it, so I'll save a half a pound for another day. And I'm going to, because this is going into the omelet and not just be eaten as like strips of bacon, I'm going to snip it up into tasty little bacon bits. The best way I have found to work with bacon, if you need to cut it up, kitchen shears. Just so much easier than trying to do it with, a knife on a cutting board. So this is my favorite way, because it just, bacon with the fat, it just always snags on your knife a little bit. So kitchen shears is the way to go. And my recommendation is own multiple kitchen shears. You don't need to own as many as I have, which is about 6 kitchen shears, and I use probably 4 or 5 in a day. But multiples work well. And for me, if you have an IKEA or near you, these cost $2 and they are awesome. I bought a whole bunch there because I love them. And I will say they work just as good as my nice and bougie, expensive Wusthof ones. They're just nice and sharp and wonderful. Beautiful. So we've got, see how just lovely these are toasting up. You got that nice kind of brownish edge on there. That one needs a little bit longer. Okay, I'm going to rotate and put this right up here. And we'll let those kind of cook. I'm going to turn this down just a smidge and let it steam up through. Okay, let's get our bacon going. Cooking it, I'll start it on high, and then I will, once that fat starts to render down, I will turn it down to about a medium so that I don't burn it. But while we're doing, let's prep up our veggies. We're going to also add, I've got some sweet peppers, onions, and mushrooms to go in here. So kind of just a delicious like meat and veggie omelet. I'm going to dice up my onions nice and small because I don't like them to be super huge in there, but little bits are great. My trick for having the best tasting omelet is I saute up all of my veggies before I put them in the omelet, because it just makes them taste so much better. So just a simple small dice on our onions. And then with our sweet peppers, we'll just take off the tops, and we'll do kind of a similar dice. That way you're not getting any super huge pieces of veggies in it, but you kind of just get this nice little taste throughout. And the nice thing is, what I like to do, because I love English muffins. I love English muffins with jam or whatnot, but a great way to eat an English muffin is you just take your omelet and you put your omelet on your English muffin, and it's like an omelet sandwich. So it has all of your your cheese and your egg and your veggies and sausage and bacon in there. So it makes a really great breakfast sandwich. So let's get these guys. Shake off the seeds. And then I'm starting to hear the sizzle of my bacon. So I'm going to get some tongs out so I can start to toss them, because you don't ever want to leave your bacon too long once you get your pan nice and hot, because it can burn pretty quickly if you forget about it, especially when you cut it up in the little bits or little pieces. Those cook a lot faster than a strip. So I'm just going to go through and kind of use my tongs to break them apart. Here. Perfect. And then let's check on these ones over here. Perfect. And you can use a spatula to flip these, but I find that they flip they're not super hot to touch. The bottoms are, but the sides aren't. And we are cooking up. Wonderful. So I'm actually going to do a little shimmy around.
So would a regular person find it?
Yeah, maybe a regular person find out. I mean, you're not holding it long term. I wouldn't want to hold it forever, but for a quick turn, it works. Okay, I'm going to turn it down just a smidge because the longer your skillet sits here, the hotter it gets. And so I constantly find that I'm just turning it down little by little. It's the same thing when I make pancakes. You know, you start and then you just are always just turning it down little by little because, you know, the metal is just getting hotter and hotter and it's conducting better.
You got a question. After Thanksgiving, is there leftover turkey for sandwiches, or what do you guys do?
So, we typically, because we have 5 turkeys that we cook up. So this is actually something my brother-in-law always does. So we shred all of the meat off of the carcasses that are left. So there is typically a good amount of turkey left over. He then takes the carcasses, puts them in this huge stock pot, and then kind of makes this lovely kind of bouillon broth base for it. And then he always makes this wonderful, amazing turkey a la king with the leftover turkey. And then we'll make like yellow turkey, which is kind of a mild turkey dish on there, but there's always some left over. And a lot of times I'll make like a turkey, you know, like instead of a chicken pot pie, but a turkey pot pie with it, because we'll also have like peas and corn left over, and I can use some of those veggies in it to make it. So there is typically on there, because my family is really good at cleaning and getting all the bits of meat off to make lots of deliciousness left over. We're not the family who makes like the quintessential Thanksgiving sandwich the next day. We've never done that. Like, you know, they always talk about it like where you use the roll and you put the cranberry sauce and the turkey and the stuffing. We've never done that. We just make like a whole new meal with it.
You also eat a late Thanksgiving.
Yes, we also do. We eat a very, very late Thanksgiving. We already eat dinner late in this house, as you guys have noticed, but our Thanksgiving dinner is typically around like 7 o'clock, maybe later, depending on, you know. I think one year we had it like at 5 and everybody was like, this is weird. But we typically do is half my family runs this 5-mile turkey trot. I used to participate in it for years, and I finally saw the light and came to my senses and said, who wants to run 5 miles on Thanksgiving and then cook a huge feast for 50 people? Not me. So I was 9 months pregnant one year, and I was like, I can't do it. I don't want to go into labor on Thanksgiving. So I got out of it, and then the following year I had pneumonia, and it just kind of sealed the deal that I never had to do it again. But while they're all running this, I make this huge breakfast spread. I make homemade cinnamon rolls and, you know, bacon, eggs, hash browns, all sorts of deliciousness for everybody when they come back. And so we kind of have this big, you know, breakfast kind of feast to hold everybody over. And then this is our crazy kind of thing that our family does, which is really weird. We have turkeys, these 3 turkeys that are delivered around 3 o'clock every Thanksgiving, and they're deep fried turkeys, and we call them our pickin' turkeys. And exactly as how they're called, they come and everybody goes around and they pick off of them and they eat the turkey. And they're in 3 different flavors, and they are delicious and wonderful. And that kind of fills us up until we make it to dinner. Okay, here are our first batch of our sourdough English muffins we have going along. They're popped up nicely. I'm going to give my bacon a little bit of a stir here. We're going to put our next batch of English muffins on. Here, our bacon is getting nice and crispy here. Slide it down.
You want to go over when we'll train, but schedule.
Yeah, I will say ideally, we'll do our late night tonight. I am baking a cake for my sister's birthday, so that will be part of it. And then I will prep up some more sourdough stuff. I might be making bagels tomorrow for breakfast, and of course, some more sourdough bread, because when you have a large family, food goes really, really fast. Insanely how fast it goes. You think that you bought enough to feed a small army. And you know what's really funny is whenever I go grocery shopping, I always get the comment, I'm like, oh, are you like cooking for a church or are you hosting something? And I'm like, nope, this is just our family. It's like 3 grocery carts, and I'm like, this is one meal. So we have a big family and it goes fast. But our plan is that we will do a late night tonight, and then do a morning tomorrow, and then hopefully a late night tomorrow night, because I have some things for Thanksgiving that I can prep ahead for it. And then Thanksgiving morning, we will cook. I'll start and do part of our breakfast feast, and we'll stream that here before I go over to my parents' house and finish it off. And then I think that will be all on Thanksgiving. We will try to catch little videos throughout the day of it, so that we can make like a small little short video for everyone to see our crazy feast at the end. Because I'll be smoking a turkey, we'll baking a turkey. I'll have my homemade green bean casserole and mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes and parsnips, cranberry sauce, all sorts of deliciousness. So we'll have that. And then that's as far as I know of our schedule so far. But it is constantly evolving, because plans change faster than they are made. Like last night, I was sitting there. We had planned, my daughter and I, we'd gone shopping, and she was like, ooh, can you make beef Wellington? And I was like, yeah, I'll make poor man's beef Wellington. This will be great. And then all of a sudden we were going out to eat. So, you never know. Today we've got a pretty full day. When all the family comes in, they like to do the fun things, especially if they don't have them where they live. So we're going to Dave and Buster's for all the little kids, because it's like an arcade, so they have to do that, and it's always fun and chaos. And then I think the fun thing that really cool is tonight we're doing zoo illuminations, which is like a walkthrough of the zoo, but they've done like holiday lights everywhere. And it's really, really cool on there. We did it a couple of years ago. And I will say Teddy is so excited, because Teddy just loves animals. It's one of his favorite things right now. And so I'm really excited for him, because he just absolutely loves that. Okay, let's get this. Let's see how our English muffins are looking. Let me pop at my time here. Good. Perfect. I can actually probably turn it up a smidge now. I'll bring them in nice. And you do want to cook these nice and slow. Don't have your griddle too hot, because what will happen is you will cook the bottoms and the tops faster than it will have time to steam up through. And that will leave you doughy on the inside of your English muffins. And these ones, I will say, are really great for reheating, even for a couple of days after they've cooked up. They just hold really well. Okay, let's get our bacon is just about crispy that we can take it out, and then we're going to drop in some sausage, and then we're going to saute up. Let's grab a plate for this. Our veggies, because that is key for making the omelet the best. And using the bacon first and then the sausage is going to give you this, a lovely kind of, instead of using like a butter or an oil, it's just going to give you that kind of flavored fat that will just make the meal so much more tasty. And when I'm putting my bacon in an omelet, I don't cook my bacon to where it's super crunchy, because I don't want a really crunchy texture in my omelet. I prefer more of that slightly crispy, slightly chewy bacon style. And that way it's not like a crunch as you're eating it. Okay, we've got our country style pork sausage here. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to shape this up in some patties and cook them up so that I have some patties in case somebody wants to have a sausage English muffin. And I'll have some, and then I'll break up some to go in our omelet because I don't need a whole pound of sausage in our omelet. That would be a bit much. Oh, I don't even need to cut this open. It looks like it has a pull tab. I found this new kind of country sausage, so I'm actually interested to try it out. I'm used to always seeing it in like the logs, and so when I see it in a slightly different shape, it must be better. Or it's probably a more efficient packaging. Okay, so we're just gonna make little patties with this. Just make sure you don't make them too thick or you'll get it too crispy on the outside before it cooks all the way through. But since I want them to go inside an English muffin, you're gonna want them a nice good size. Also knowing that they're gonna seize up just a little bit when they cook. And then we'll break up after they've cooked up, we'll break up a couple of them so that they can go in our omelet. But cooking them in the bacon grease is just going to add wonderful flavor. Now, if you want to make them even more bougie, you could add up some like diced up onions or green onions, season with a little bit of Cajun seasoning or cayenne pepper to give it a little bit of a flair to it. I got a bunch of these because I'm thinking one of these days I'm going to do homemade biscuits and with a sausage gravy, like a southern sausage gravy. It's something I absolutely love. And since more of my family's in town, I'll make it because my kids don't like it as much as I love it. Only like 2 of them like it. But I can make some sausage patties for them. Let's see. Maybe we'll do a cute little one in the middle. And then I think will be time to flip our English muffins. Here we go. And we're just going to flatten out our sausages. I'll wash my hands, and then we're going to flip our English muffins on here. Okay. Get those cooking up. Let's see where we're checking here. Just about, but I saw that my oven has about 20 seconds left, so we can start heading over there for our sourdough to take the lid off so that we can be on the second part of it. Perfect. So we baked it for 20 minutes at 500 degrees. Now we'll take them both out. We're going to remove the lid and we'll bring the temperature down to 450. And then we'll bake for the next part for 20 minutes at 450 to give you that nice kind of golden crust, because you're going to have a blonde crust right now that has this nice kind of steaming up in there, but we see we have this beautiful pop on them. I will say the scoring turned out wonderful on here. Let's slide this over here. Let's pop these back in. So here's our round bowl. I always love it when the scoring turns out nice because I'm not a person who really dedicates a lot of time to it. One of these days, I'll spend time on it, I keep saying. So bring our temperature down to 450 because 500 will give it just too dark of a color. And I really like mine with a nice blonde color to it. And I say blonde, it's more like a brownish blonde. It's not a pale one, but it's just a little bit nicer when it's not too crunchy, especially if you're going to reheat it and eat it the next day. Okay. We've got the middle one. These are looking good. These blonde ones over here are a little bit blonde, so you want to just make sure they get a little bit browner. So I'm going to bring that, finish toasting those up. You can see these ones were my Frankenstein English muffins because, you know, you spread and laminate out your dough on here, and it's really like thick dough to work with. And you cut it out, but you don't want to waste it. So you kind of just push and shape them back together, but they never turn out quite as pretty. Let's check out our sausages here. Let me grab a spatula. So we've got our nice little browning on here. My cute little baby one that can go on my little itty bitty tiny English muffin here. See, planned ahead right there. Out to my jack sized. Yeah. There we go. And then I've got my green onions and some of my garlic I want to mince up, and then we'll start sauteing off our vegetables in there just to get them a quick little, you know, toast on it. You don't have to saute them until they're completely tender, but having them just a little bit sauteed takes out the little bitterness in the freshness of them. It's the same thing when I make pizzas. I love to saute up my vegetables before I put them on the pizza because it just takes out some of that bitterness from those vegetables. Gives you a more, I feel like, finished off meal. Okay, a little bit of green onion. And I feel with omelets, you can really add so many different vegetable combinations in it. Peppers, onions, and mushrooms are one of my favorites. Tomatoes are also a good option. I'm going to put in about 3 cloves of garlic in here as well. I'll get them minced up and sliced up on here. You can always use garlic as well because garlic is not going to be the main staple in this dish, but will be fantastic. Here. Give this a nice little dice up. And I want to mince it fairly small because, again, you don't want to have a huge chunk of garlic in your omelet, but the little bits are fine. So we'll give it a good mincing. And it's like I haven't even cooked the garlic, but it smells so good. I will say garlic is one of those things that it is not good if you eat it raw, but then when it's cooked, it's fabulous, and the smell of cooking it is fabulous. Same with an onion. Okay. So that should be just about good, and it looks like my sausages are just about there. They're kind of puffed up nicely.
You have a question? How early should you start brining your turkey?
So I like to do mine the day before. You want to at least do it the night before. And if you're, and this is for us who eats kind of turkey later. So you want to make sure, I will say 12 hours minimum, but you can brine it for 24 hours on there. And you can do it, if you have it, you can do a refrigerator brine, or if you live in a place where your like garage where it's safe is cold enough, you can put it in a tub out there with a lid on and brine it. You know, my mom, when we used to live in Iowa, she used to call her garage in the winter her second refrigerator because it would be like below freezing out there. In Tennessee, we don't have that ability to do it because it's like 70 on Thanksgiving, and it took her a couple of Christmases where I'm like, we are all going to die of food poisoning if you keep putting food out there. But I was going to say, for the juiciest to really get it through, minimum 12 hours, but you can kind of do it longer. I'm going to be brining mine because I'm going to be, you know, for one of mine, we're going to brine one and we're going to leave one unbrined. There we go. Beautiful. Nice kind of crispy edge. Perfect. I'm going to take these guys off, and then we're going to start cooking our onions. Give them a quick flash cook on there. And then we'll chop up like 2 of these to go into our omelets because they're good sized sausages. But the beauty is you have this wonderful bacon and sausage drippings that is going to add a whole nother set of flavors to your sauteed veggies. So let's get our onions in here. And we're going to give them a nice kind of quick thing. My husband is drooling over the sausage and bacon. He feels like that is probably a good enough plate for him. He needs nothing else, maybe some eggs and an English muffin. But he's like, you don't need to add any of those vegetables in whatsoever.
Yeah, question. What do you put in your brine?
So I actually, the brining, I've made it in before in the past. I'm not a big, it's one of those things where it's just not worth the spices. I just buy a brining kit. I've used Williams and Sonoma's brining kit, but they're expensive. Publix, where we live, has a brining kit that is pretty cheap. I use it because honestly, it's really just a salty seasoned water. I also do other seasonings on the outside of my turkey, so it's not a mainstay flavor for me. It's really just to create a super juicy and tender turkey on there. So I just buy the little kit because it's honestly a lot easier than getting all the separate ingredients for it. But really, whatever spices, you're going to need a good amount of salt, pepper, some bay leaves, and then whatever spices you want to come through in your turkey, like rosemary, thyme, oregano. Those are pretty much all really good spices to have in there. Okay, let's give this a good thing. You just see how those little tasty little bits are kind of coming up on those onions there. And that one little pepper that snuck in there. Okay, before we add our peppers in, we're going to add our garlic. Give this a quick toss. I will say, heaven on earth, garlic is the best. Let's do our little shimmy. I always like move it so you notice your center is your hottest spot on here. So any ones that are a little blonde, just move in there and toast around. These are about ready to come off here in just a second. And then we'll move them over to our pan. I'm going to turn it down, let them kind of cook for a minute or two with just some residual heat. And we'll move them over to our plate and let them kind of sit there. Let's give our garlic just a smidge more. Man, it smells so good. Okay, let's get our peppers in. I always just I don't ever just throw all my veggies in at one time. Onions are something that need to start in first. I always say they're just they need a minute for them to shine. And once they've had it, they're wonderful. But I don't like to throw them all at one time because then they don't get their caramelization and their flavor out because they need that time on the pan by themselves. And then I do the garlic after the onions because, again, it needs to crisp up a little bit, but you don't want it to have too much direct heat. So about 30 seconds to a minute, and then peppers next. And then we'll do our mushrooms, and then last we'll add in our green onions. Don't add your green onions in with your regular onions. Green onions don't have the sturdiness as a yellow onion, and so they will wilt really easily and lose their flavor. So those are much better added towards the very end. Okay. And you know what? I've made a good amount of veggies here, so I might actually grab, I was going to do an 8-egg omelet, but I think I'm going to grab 2 more and do a 10-egg omelet. So let me grab 2 more eggs here because we need it. Now, my rule of thumb when you're using your pans is you can go kind of plus or minus around your pan. So I'm using a 10-inch frying pan, and so I like to do your 10 or minus 2 8 eggs in here for the perfect ones. If you go any less, your omelet's really thick. Then if you go any more, it's too thick. So your 12-inch frying pan, you can do like a 12 to 10, and then your 8-inch, you can do an 8 to 6. on there. And that's kind of gives you the perfect thickness for it. With omelets, you always need to pre-mix your eggs. You don't want to scramble in the pan. So we'll get our eggs in here. And I like to, for an omelet, I like to base it about 2 eggs per person. Now, kids, you can do about 1 egg per person, like for the littler ones. But you don't need to go more than that because, again, you have that filling and it stretches out more. And we also have, you know, our English muffins and everything. And I don't make, our breakfasts aren't like the Sunday brunch feasts. They're, you know, meant to be more sizable, or not sizable portions, sensible, different word, different meaning, sensible portions. Okay, let me get a fork to whisk that. And let's get our mushrooms in here now that our peppers have had a minute in the pan. They've got just enough heat to kind of take off a little bit of that bitterness that raw veggies can have. And I always do the mushrooms kind of last because mushrooms are sponges and they are going to soak up all of that tasty drippings. But if you do them first, there will be no good drippings to saute the onions in or anything like that. So do them last. Here we go. Kind of coat them up nicely. And you can see it's already taking away most of that liquid or that oil base on the bottom of the pan. Okay, while those saute for a hot minute, we can take these guys off. We've got our beautiful English muffins here. I'll leave that one on there for a smidge longer. Okay, this guy is off and he is done with. And then let me grab my garlic salt to season up our veggies here. I can't believe I didn't set it out. Such a shame. Now I'm seasoning my veggies with garlic salt, but I'm seasoning my eggs with regular salt. You can totally season your eggs with garlic salt. My children, for some reason, they boycott garlic salt on their eggs. And I don't know why, because I think it's tasty and delicious. But there's one of me and there are 5 of them, and so they have me overpowered.
I do want to explain that this week is a lot of prep to be brought over.
Yes. So this week, all of my family is essentially in town at my parents'. And my parents, as you know, they live like 3 miles away from us. So we are very close. And we have our English muffins that we're going to be bringing over. We've got 2 sourdough loaves baking up that we're going to be bringing over. We baked up a bunch of cookies last night that we're bringing over for them. And so this is just a small little breakfast thing that we're bringing over for the crews that have already come into town on there, because I come from, you guys think I have a large family. I come from an even larger family. So I'm the youngest of 10. I have 6 full siblings and 3 half siblings. So all of my full siblings and us, we get together every Thanksgiving, and we all have between 3 and 5 kids each. So you can just imagine how much chaos that is. There's about 50 people that gets together, and it is crazy, all in one house, and it is fun and crazy, and lots of food gets eaten. So I'll bring over and it will be gone before lunchtime hits. Okay, let's give these a little toss. I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of garlic salt. I always like to let the mushrooms saute a little bit before I add any salt in, because once you add salt on mushrooms, they start to let out their juices. And so you want them to get a little bit of that crispness up on the pan before they start to wilt. We're just going to do a slight shake over, but you do want to season up your veggies in there so you don't have a bland veggie mixture. And I'm going to say I use probably like a half a teaspoon. You don't need so much because we did cook them in the bacon grease and in that sausage dripping. So you have just all that lovely flavor already there. And then we'll add our green onions in here in just a second. Let's toss in our salt in here. Again, you could put garlic salt in here. And if you wanted a slightly bougier looking omelet, you could throw your green onions in your egg instead of into your veggies, and you would have just lovely little green specks in here. For your omelets, do salt up your egg before you do it, just because then it just kind of completes it. But don't over salt it, because you are going to be having your veggies in there, the meat and the cheese. That adds a little bit of saltiness to it, but it does need a little bit. Okay, let's get our green onions in here. This is going to saute for just a short period of time, because again, you don't want to cook it too much with those so that they don't wilt up. Beautiful. And let me grab a plate to slide this stuff on. Now I'm going to toss in some of our bacon. I'm going to leave a little bit out for those who want it on the side. And then I'm going to break up some of my sausage to go in here as well. This is our country pork sausage that we cooked up. Break it up in there to kind of saute it up. Add a nice little chunks of meat into our omelet. I like to stir it up into it so that it kind of gets mixed around with those veggies.
Do you have a question? Do any of your siblings cook as well?
I will say my brother-in-law cooks really, really well. He was actually my inspiration to learning to cook and whatnot, because he's a fantastic cook. But I don't feel like any of my siblings have really gone down. I feel like they cook because you kind of need to cook in life, but not like a passion like we both have. Okay, let's get these guys slid out on our plate here. And then let me grab my spatula here so I can kind of scrape all of these little bits in here. Now we'll have some of our nice, lovely meat drippings in here, but you do want to add a smidge bit of butter on here, just to kind of help with that egg. We're going to let it melt. I'm going to turn my pan on to about a 4. Go low and slow with an omelet. You don't want to cook it too fast, or you're going to kind of burn your egg or make it kind of too brown. Once that butter is melted, we're going to pour it in. Now, the method that I use to cook my omelets, I don't do the steam where you put the lid on. I use my really thin spatula to lift up around the edges and allow the liquid egg part to fall underneath, constantly creating an outer part of our omelet. Here we go. So we'll kind of let that sit and cook here for just a second. While we're letting that sit and cook, you want to take your cheese, and this is going to be for one layer. That's kind of the top layer. You want to sprinkle it over the top of your veggies right now that are hot and steaming. This starts the melting process, so you don't have to wait as long in there. So I'm using a little bit of white sharp cheddar, and then I'm going to use a little bit of yellow sharp cheddar. Again, we're doing a little sprinkle over the top. We'll also have a little bit underneath, so you kind of have that cheese on the top and bottom of this kind of mixture that's going to go in the middle of it. There we go. And that just the residual heat from these vegetables that had just come out of this, the saute pan will start that melting process, so it doesn't take quite as long. We're going to turn it here just a smidge. And I'm cooking it over about a 4 to 5-ish. Let's go grab our Dutch ovens out. I'm going to move this over here so we have a nice spot to transfer these. And we can get our loaves out, which is pretty much perfect timing. Okay, so here we've got our nice kind of oval loaf. Slide that right here. And here is our bowl. And these are both our traditional sourdough loaves. We actually shaped them up last night on our late night stream. Now, once you bake them in your Dutch ovens, you don't want to leave them in here for their kind of cooling off period. You know, before you cut into your sourdough, it needs to cool for a minimum of 10 minutes so it's not gummy or whatnot. Take it out of your Dutch oven because your Dutch oven stays nice and hot for about 20 minutes, and that will continue to cook the bottom. And you want this beautiful golden brown crust because if it gets too hot, it's going to make it rock hard on the bottom. And then the same here, again, a beautiful light golden brown crust. So we've got our round bowl and our loaf, kind of two different shapes. It's nice. You can kind of cook them in, you know, depending on what Dutch oven you have, can give you shapes. I will say the oval is really great for sandwiches because it doesn't give you these super huge slices. But, you know, the bowl is just a classic. It's so pretty. Okay, let's go check on our omelet here. I think we've got our first base down. So this is where you can see you've got this kind of edge forming. You're just going to take, and you need a thin spatula for this. You're just going to flip it up like this, slide it under, and let that base kind of fill up underneath there. You need to make sure you've got a firm, you know, a cooked layer first. But this is going to allow you to create a new bottom over and over, which is going to give you a much nicer omelet that doesn't get too browned. And as it cooks a little bit more, you're able to pick it up a little bit deeper. Looks like I got a piece of mushroom on that one. So just kind of lift it up. And you need a non-stick pan for this. It's not going to do it very well in a metal pan unless you have it really, really well oiled and seasoned, because eggs just love to stick to metal pans. So just like kind of this lift and flip on there. And you see I'm using, this is like a paper thin spatula. That's really what you're going to want to do because it's going to be the easiest thing to slide underneath, kind of to separate the egg from the side of the pan. Let's see. And then you just kind of let it go, let it cook up that new layer, and it will just continue to cook and cook, and you keep sliding that under. Once you've gotten all of this kind of ooey gooiness, the snottiness of the egg gone, then you'll be ready to add your filling back in. So slide this guy underneath, just like that. Let me give it a little rotation. See if this guy is wanting to slide under. There we go.
Well, Marianne, since you get.
Well, thank you, Marianne. We appreciate that. I'll slide this guy up. Now, I know there is the way where you put the lid on and you steam it, but I feel like that gives you such a fluffy omelet in the sense, and I like the richer kind of slightly, you know, not spongy omelet. I'm just not a spongy omelet fan. And this is allowing you to get a really great kind of sear off on every single one. And you can see you just hold it and it just slides right under there. So you're not going to get too much of that, that under part of your egg, you know, too brown, which you can get when you steam it because you're not regenerating that bottom part. Here. Turn this down just a smidge. And then just gently kind of slide it over to one side. Add it in there. Again, we'll We'll slide it around. It's kind of fun too. And this is why, because you see how it's getting thicker, this is why on a 10-inch pan, you can't really go more than 10 eggs because then it becomes just too thick. Okay, I think we are just about good on this. So I'm going to turn it down really low. And we are going to add in just a base layer of cheese on 1/2. And don't go too thick or too crazy because a little bit of cheese goes a long way on an omelet. And I find that it is very easy to put too much cheese on there. So again, just a nice thin layer of cheese. And then you're going to take your sauteed veggies here. And we're going to put them on that half. And now is the fun part. Now, I don't make individual omelets. I make one big omelet, which sometimes can be a little bit tricky to flip up. But as long as you pre-slide under, you should be able to flip it up, no problem. Sometimes you just need to slide a second spatula under to get it. And then we're just gonna fold it over. Now, this is a pretty honking big omelet on there. This is your hungry man's omelet, but this is going to easily feed 6 or 7 people because you're just going to take small little slivers here. But it is going to be so full of deliciousness. Just had to steal a little bite. But here is our beautiful giant honkin' omelet. Turn off your heat. You see how your nonstick pan, the egg just moved off beautifully on it. It's not too overcooked. And we are ready to kind of cook up here or serve up our little brunch here. So let me grab my jam out because I do my English 2 ways. I do a sweet one with our little jelly on it or jam on it. And then our other one is with a slice of our omelet on it to make like an omelet breakfast sandwich. So let me get my bread knife. I'm going to completely slide this off the heat so that we don't get any extra. Where's my butter paddle? Right over here. And let's clear a little bit of this out of the way. Since we don't need this anymore, I do need a spatula though. And look at our beautiful English muffins over here. And we've got, of course, our gorgeous sourdough loaves, which are just going to be snacked on all day at my parents' house. I said, what's not to love about them? And let's get a little plate here. So let's cut open our English muffin. That way you guys can see the beautiful kind of bubbly crumb inside. You see how it's just nice and bubbly like a regular sourdough bread. And all you did was steam cook it up on the griddle. So it's nice and warm inside. So I love to do a little bit of butter on each one. And then we'll do a little dollop of jam, any type that you're loving. My kids are a big fan of strawberry jam. A drizzle of honey is also amazing on it for just a simple, easy one. And again, these are really great to reheat. And then for our kind of a sandwich mode, for just a really simple, basic sandwich, again, look at that beautiful crumb. You can just add a simple sausage patty in for just your basic breakfast sandwich. And then for the omelet one, which is one of my favorites, cut this guy open. Again, look at that beautiful crumb on there. You're just going to take your spatula, take a small slice of this omelet. And again, this is a 10-egg omelet. full of mushrooms, onions, peppers, cheese, and garlic. You pop it on there. You put your top on. It has bacon in there and sausage. And now you just have this wonderful, gorgeous omelet sandwich for a delicious but simple breakfast. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page, search for what we made, and you can watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets. I've got my griddle pans, all of my sourdough baking kits, my knives, my spatulas, everything I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.